If I could force a blush, I would, because uh, last Wednesday, I made a mistake and accidentally released the solutions to the homework assignment slash quiz before, at around actually 6:45 p.m. and didn't notice until 10 p.m. Both my TA and a student send me emails saying, "Did you know you'd done this?" And unfortunately, I was doing other things that didn't involve food, or that involved food and other non-online activities. So I didn't notice. The net result is that several people got perfect scores on the assignment, uh, obviously because they were reading my solutions. It was actually a hard assignment, and perfect scores were extraordinarily unlikely. What I think I'll do in order to avoid penalizing those who put good work into it, in case this is among their top 10 scores for the semester, uh, is I'll look at everyone who got a perfect score on the assignment, and I will look at the time they submitted their work. And if the submission was after I released the results, I'll discount those scores. But for people who submitted before, or for people who submitted imperfect scores after, I'll count them, because the distribution on the imperfect scores looks like a perfectly normal, perfectly usual. I say normal is a statistical property of a distribution. Usual is an intuitive property. It looks perfectly usual if I discount the fives. And there weren't that many of them. So most people who did work on the assignment didn't notice the solutions I'd posted, or if they noticed, they ignored them. So I think that's the resolution I'll use. And I apologize for making a stupid mistake. What happened was I got a call saying, "Hey, dinner's ready. Hurry up." So I hurried up, and the usual consequence of hurrying up is to do stupid things, and that's exactly what I did. So that's that issue. The big issue for today is the machine problem. And I can think of two constructive things I can do. One of them is to answer questions about the previous assignment, the machine problem that I have a reference solution for. There's some interesting things in it that are worth exploring. And the other constructive thing I can imagine doing is simply answering questions about the machine problem. So the chat window is open if people want to ask questions offline. But if there are issues in the structure of the program, for example, that you find difficult, I would be more than happy to work on them. Let's see, that's this annoying extra window which Zoom puts up. So let's see. What I'll do right now is I'll share screen, if it will let me. Too many windows. And put in on the code, the code for the reference. This is the solution to MP7, where I did some interesting things, and maybe they're worth discussing. Let's go down to class. Let's see, recovery distributions. That's at the main program. So yes, here's a question coming up. Wouldn't canceling scores be a little unfair? A student could have randomly guessed lucky one week and had his or her grade boosted only to get their grade canceled at no fault of their own. Well, the probability of that by random guessing, it's 1 in 5 on each assignment. So random guessing to get a perfect assignment, 1 in 5 on each problem times 5. So what's 1/5 to the 5th power? That's a very small probability. The likelihood that I'm hurting someone is extraordinarily low. And the number of perfect scores was way higher than that. And what if I simply cancel the assignment completely, what I do is I penalize all the students who put honest effort into it. And that seems really unfair compared to the unfairness of someone who was guessing and happened to get a perfect score by guessing, which is so unlikely, whereas the number of perfect scores that are there, those don't look like guesses. So the problem is to minimize the number of students whose effort is wasted and to maximize the number of students whose effort is counted. And I think simply discounting the entire problem is the solution that one student proposed to me. And simply discounting the entire problem seems like it unfairly penalizes those who didn't notice that I'd accidentally posted the solutions. So I'd rather maximize the number of students who are not harmed. And most I can do is abjectly apologize for doing a stupid thing and then try to minimize the damage. So, but the other thing is with the top scores out of however many I assign over the course of the semester, which is likely to be around 14. Another option would be simply to drop both the highest and the lowest scores. So instead of counting the top 10 scores, I would count the top 10. I would discount the highest score and then count the top 10 remaining scores. And 0 is, remember, we're dropping the low scores. So only the top 10 scores out of 14 or so scores are counting. So dropping an assignment is not the same as, because of the dropped low scores, it's not the same as a penalty. So it just says that one of those scores is being, that one of the dropped scores will be a 5. And that's this alternative that I just came up with on the fly that says I'm going to drop the highest score for everyone and the remaining low scores for everyone. That would be another way of dealing with it. And that's sort of the way some people with experimental data work. They say, we're going to throw away the outliers and grade on the scores that remain. So, and throwing away the highest and the lowest score would be an interesting policy that I don't think would, on the whole, harm people, but it would be certainly annoying for those who put work into that highest score. So that's the closest to a resolution I have right now. I don't think I'll drop the highest score for everyone. I think what I'll do is I'll only, incidentally, ICON does record the time at which solutions were submitted. So anyone who gets a perfect score submitting before I accidentally made my mistake, and there are a lot of people who submitted solutions before that, they're not going to be penalized. So let's see, I've got this code on screen here, and class error is really not interesting. So what I wanted to do is pop down to the main program. Here we are, where we're going through the keywords. Incidentally, some people have correctly noticed that this cascade of ifs looking for keywords, clever use of hash maps and things like that, can make this more efficient. But I didn't do that because I was trying to steer people away from abusing hash maps by simply not mentioning them at all. But what you notice here is this, for the latent keyword, we simply get an infection rule. For the